Hey, welcome back to Weekly Writing Update. So we'll jump right in here. Been a pretty good week as far as writing goes. In the midst of revisions for draft number 2. I finished chapter 7 this week and I have started chapter 8. I anticipate I'm about halfway through chapter 8. We are at 41 pages in. So quick math here, 41 divided by 168, 24% for manuscript editing. Now, I've got a lot. How I'm doing it is I'm going in and just reading it all and writing notes for myself, and then I'm gonna have to go in and change a lot of stuff. So I hesitate to say that I'm 24% through, but we are through 24% on manuscript editing. So that's, that's pretty good progress. I think we were at like 10% just a couple weeks ago. Chapter 8 has thus far been some of my favorite as far as the actual content goes. I'm writing from a new character's perspective. We have met this character in the book already, but this is the first chapter that he is getting a perspective. And I'm finding that I really like the way that I wrote his perspective and wrote his, outlook on things. He's a little bit inconsistent right now, so I need to go in and kind of change some of the way that he talks and how he expresses himself a little bit. I'm not surprised by that. I kind of flip-flopped on how I wanted this character to come across. But that said, I think chapter 8 really embodies what I ultimately want him to be. So that's been really exciting. One of my notes for chapter 8 was I just had a note where I had like no edits on a page. I just really love that page and the content that I had on there. So that was very exciting. Chapter 7, I think I mentioned chapter 7 was pretty long. So I did have quite a few notes on that one. Let's see here. Yeah, two whole pages of notes. I had some continuity issues. I'm changing one of the characters' title. A lot of stuff that I felt just didn't fully fit. But I think I mentioned last week that chapter 7 is where I feel that the book's really coming kind of to know itself. And then that really continues in chapter 8. I think that I'm going to kind of go back to these chapters and use them as a barometer for what I want this to be. So lots of notes, but I think that's kind of a good thing at this point. Chapter 8. Oh my gosh, I've said the wrong thing. I've finished chapter 8. Chapter 9 is where I'm at right now. Chapter 9 is what I've been talking about, some of the best stuff. So chapter 7, 8, 9 have been pretty stellar material here as far as, how I want the book to end up. I did have a page and a half of notes on chapter 8. I had a couple plot ideas, and what I'm finding to be kind of difficult is I keep having plot ideas within the revision process, so I'm kind of fighting with myself right now. Do I actually go in and try and institute some of these changes, some of the plot changes? Do I add more complexity or do I remove complexity? We'll see how that shakes out in the end. I think as of now, I'm planning to kind of start hinting at some of this complexity and maybe saving some of it to be, further down the road, or things that I can get to if I need those plot points in the future. In chapter 8, I called it part 2 of the book. That feels a little early to me right now. I don't know if that quite fits. I do think that I want to use a part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, structure within this because of I think it'll work really well. So I think that part 2 just needs to get pushed a little bit to later. So I kind of had a note about that. Chapter 8, I had a lot of notes to go back and cross-check some stuff. And I also have 2 characters that I want to write out of part of the book. And chapter 8 is where I think I need to do it. So there's a fair amount that I need to add at the end of chapter 8. Like I mentioned earlier, chapter 9, I already have about a page of notes on it, but they're all pretty good notes. So like I said, chapter 9, definitely a barometer for how I want the rest of the book to go. That's that's pretty cool. It's kind of fun to read your writing and enjoy it. So that's kind of where I was at on chapter 9. That's really been an uplifter. You know, revision is just hard. It's hard to be hard on yourself, and it's hard to kind of take a critical eye to the things that you've written, especially if you wrote the way that I did, where I just tried to turn off my inner critic and just kind of power through it. So it's a difficult process. I feel like I'm learning a lot. What I'm learning a lot about is how to do the first draft in the first place. I think if I was to write a first draft now, I would be a lot more careful and a lot more, maybe not a lot more, but I would have a little bit more planning. So, you know, if you're in the middle of your first draft, I would just I would implore you to make sure that you are, how do I say this? That your direction is where you want it to go, that you kind of have a direction. I definitely had a direction that I wanted to go, but I knew that I've always been challenged with actually finishing a first draft. So I kind of let direction go to the wayside in kind of in favor of more progress. That was good for what I needed at the time. I think now I would probably change that process up. And it's not that I'm having trouble with the revisions. It's a challenge for sure, but it's just kind of adding some complexity that I'm like, oh, I could have pretty easily planned out just a tiny bit more and not had some of the notes that I've got on continuity and stuff like that. So pretty good week of writing overall. Like I said, 24%. We'll probably finish chapter 8 this week, and good Lord, I keep on saying chapter 8. I will probably finish chapter 9 this week and move on to chapter 10. I should look at how many chapters there are. Wonder if that's weighted the same, like 24%. I kind of doubt it. There are 39 chapters as of now. And I know that I have some sequences in there that are not within chapters, so I'd say it's probably more like 40 chapters. So I guess it is kind of weighted correctly. 24%, 10 out of 40 chapters, kind of checks out. The other thing about that is I am reading a couple books right now that are kind of informing the way that I want to do the ship life portion of the book. There are some really interesting novels. As soon as I finish them, I will mention them by name. I'm reading some really cool sci-fi that has really given me some kind of fresh ideas and fresh takes on how I want some of the ship parts and some of the interpersonal stuff to happen in my book. So that's been really nice. That is it for this week's update. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'll see you next week for another one. Bye.